What's up, Gators? This is David Hayder, and welcome to my next favorite indie game of the week. This is a series in which I review an awesome indie game that I have been playing for the past week and talk about why you should check it out and play it for yourself. So today, I want to introduce you guys to a game called Courier of the Crypts. Courier of the Crypts is a 2D action-adventure game created by Ember Heart Games, where you have to survive as a courier on his first errand to the Guardian of the Crypts. Your main tool to achieve this mission is a magic torch, which you use to illuminate your path, defend yourself from evil spirits, and solve puzzles. I would also like to mention that I played an early access version of this game, and that some of the features that may have been released after this review may not be covered here. So, with that said, I will be focused on talking about my experience with the game in that current state and how I felt about the content that was present when I played that version of the game. So one of the first things that impressed me the most about this game was how well done the world was visually created. The developer did a great job at creating a creepy atmosphere through the way the lighting was carefully placed inside each level of the game, along with the subtle, creepy noises and music that was playing in the background while I was exploring the crypts. I also loved how detailed the crypts were made and how well the game created a sense of uneasiness in me as I was exploring the crypts throughout this game. As a matter of fact, this aspect of the game was done so well that when I first started playing this game, I could have sworn this was an undercover horror game. I was bracing myself the whole time for something to jump out of the shadows and scare me senseless. Fortunately, that did not happen, but there are things in this game that may send chills down your spine as you're trying to find your way out of the crypts. For example, one of the main things you will have to avoid throughout this game are spiders, and these are not just any ordinary spiders either. If you happen to run into one of them, they will try to kill you, and not only that, but if your torch's light happens to go out, they will chase you down. Some of them even have the ability to fire webs at you that will burn out your torch's light. Fortunately, being directly adjacent to the spiders doesn't mean that you'll be in immediate danger. As long as you have your torchlight on, you're safe to get near them. It's only when you're directly in their line of sight that they will try to harm you. Spiders are not the only enemies that will bug you in this game. As you go deeper into the crypts, the game introduces a variety of enemies that all have unique abilities that you'll need to learn how to combat and avoid. For example, there are tentacles that pop out of sewage water that will fire projectiles at you, and there are also jelly monsters that explode if you get near them. I would also like to mention that there are traps placed throughout the crypts that may get you when you least expect it if you're not trekking the crypts carefully, such as spikes popping out of the ground and arrows shooting out from walls. In my experience, I didn't have any problems with the monsters in this game so far, but there is one issue that I think needs to be addressed. I've noticed that whenever a monster or trap fires a projectile at me, the monsters who stand in the way of the projectile don't get hit, and instead it goes through the monster. This is something that I think needs to be fixed in future updates. So now that I've talked about some of the enemies that you will encounter inside of the crypts, let's talk about what you can use to combat them. So, in this game, you cannot directly attack the monsters that you'll run into. There are no swords that you can pick up to slash the spiders out of the way, and there are no shields that you can use to defend yourself if you find yourself in a sticky situation. Instead, you'll have to find rocks that can be found throughout different areas of the level that you're in, and you can throw these rocks at monsters if you wanted to attack them. And if you're lucky enough, you may also find oil urns, which basically act like Molotovs, in which you can throw this item at enemies and set them on fire. Although there is always the option of attacking a monster if you find yourself in danger, the downside to using these items is that the rocks actually require a lot to be thrown at an enemy, such as a spider, in order to kill them. And although the oil urns are very powerful, they are also very rare to find. So even though not being able to quickly kill monsters was kind of frustrating at first, in the end, I felt like this was a great design choice because it forced me to think of other ways in which I could cleverly use these items to my advantage, and it also made me become more careful about getting into a direct confrontation with certain monsters. As you're exploring the crypts and trying to avoid the monsters and traps, you'll also encounter puzzles that you'll need to solve in order to advance to the next dungeon in the game. Although I usually struggle with solving puzzles, I found the puzzles in this game to be very simple to solve, which may be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. And what I mean by that is the puzzles mostly consist of finding the right levers to push and buttons to press in order to collect an item or unlock something that will eventually lead you to the exit. Although I think this is fine for the early stages of this game, in future updates, I feel like the game should definitely involve the torch more into future puzzles. If the game took more advantage of making players use the features of the torch more cleverly, if the developer decided to make more puzzles that involve the torch in the future, then that would certainly make this game stand out more in my opinion. Speaking of which, let's talk more about the torch. So the first thing you need to know about the torch is that you cannot use it as a weapon to attack monsters. Even though you can scare off monsters such as spiders with a torch, it's simply a tool to light the pathway inside of the crypts as you're trying to find the exit. Another thing that you need to know is that the torch has a meter that indicates how long until the torch's light goes out. And if you let the meter run out, the torch's light will go out and you must quickly find something to refill the torch's light meter, or else spirits will come and get you. You can also turn off the torch's light manually if you wanted to do that for some reason. One of the ways you can refill the torch's light meter is that you can find flame orb-like items throughout the dungeon that will slightly fill the torch's light meter and may give you enough time to find some more. Or you can also find a checkpoint, which are basically big stone torches that you have to light up with your torch by standing near it, and it will slowly fill your meter whole. The cool thing about the checkpoints is that it features a system in which you can not only respawn there if you happen to die, but you can also come back to the checkpoint and refill the torch's light meter as many times as you want. Overall, I feel like the mechanics of the torch's light is another great addition to the game because the torch basically acts like a time constraint, and it creates a sense of urgency inside the player to get out of the crypts as quickly as possible. Another cool thing about this game is that you can find collectibles such as relics and secrets in each level of the game. As you're exploring the crypts, you will also stumble across notes that give you the story behind the crypt that you're in, and sometimes the notes may even contain hints about secret passageways that you can find that will lead to coins that you can collect, or even more notes about the crypts. And if you want to know how many collectibles are in each level of the game, once you find a relic or secret, the game will show a score of how many of those items you have collected and how many are still left to find. I think this is another great feature of this game because it gives players a reason to go back and play through each level in the game again. Unfortunately, collecting coins in this game is kind of useless because you currently cannot do anything with it. But apparently, in the full release of this game, the coins will serve a more useful purpose, in which you could meet some spirits and buy some upgrades with the coins that you've collected. Finally, let's talk about something that I did not expect to find in this game, which are the boss fights. So I don't know what the plans are for bosses in the future, but currently there is only one mini boss that you can fight during the time I was playing this game. And from that fight alone, I can tell that the developer put a lot of thought into showing us what kind of bosses we could expect to see in the future. I appreciated how the boss was different from the usual bosses I could expect to see in the crypts, and I hope that future bosses will continue this trend. With that said, even though I love how well the mini boss fit into the whole scheme of the crypts, I did have a difficult time defeating that mini boss, but it's not like the mini boss was that difficult to beat either. The main issue for me was that there was no indication of how well I was doing while I was trying to defeat the mini boss, even as I was constantly hitting its weak spot with rocks and oil urns. This problem can be easily fixed if future bosses had a health bar, or if the character that the player is controlling said something that would indicate that what I was doing was effective or the right thing to do. Really, creating any sort of indication of how well I'm doing during a boss fight would create less confusion and give players a less frustrating experience with boss fights, which is always a good thing. So now that I've talked about my experience while playing this game, the only question that remains is, should you buy this game? Even though I do think that this game is a little bit expensive for what's being currently offered, and there are still a lot of things that needs to be improved in this game, the content that I experienced from this game so far shows some promise of this being a good game to play for yourself in the future. Keep in mind that this is still an early access game, so there is still a whole lot of content and features that have not been included yet that may take you over the edge when the game is complete. But if you like the content that you've seen in this game so far, and you believe in the vision of this game, then you should definitely consider supporting this game, because in my opinion, the game represents what it wants to do very well. Overall, if you want to play an adventure game that has a creepy atmosphere and a game that gives you a break from mindless combat and actually requires some strategic thinking, then I highly recommend you check this game out and play it for yourself. So now that I've talked about why this is my favorite indie game of the week, I want to know what you guys think of this game. So, if you've played this game before, then let me know what you liked or disliked about this game, and if you guys have any more questions about this game, then let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as possible. Finally, if you've enjoyed this review and you want to see more, then please leave a like to show your support for this new series. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later, Gators.